Temple grads. So we've been covering this for like, what, 2 months at least? And it's over.
Like that.
They went back to work. Reef, I'm giving you an opportunity. Do you see your screen? Speakers. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Left Voice, Indie Media Award honoree. All right, Temple's grad worker strike ends with important victories. Now, they didn't get everything they wanted, and they'll be the first to admit that. Why is this? Oh, because I'm not. Okay, that's weird. You're
weird.
Okay, hold on. Vertical sources, turn this off. Gotcha. Don't know why it did that. But it did. Sorry, everybody. All right. Temple's grad worker strike ends with important victories. Yay. I'm glad that's happening. That's great to hear. What's going on there? Hold on 1 minute. Full squad show. Why is that not great?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What happened?
I gotta go. The vertical one was just messed up. I fixed it. We're good. All right. Temple. It's official. The Temple University Grad Student Association, which is TUGSA, has voted by a margin of 344 to 8. That's a pretty overwhelming margin. The 6-week-long strike of grad workers in Philly is over, and it ended in important victories. Well, what did they get? Now, this is written by Jason Koslowski. We've read 1 or 2 of his articles from Left Voice about this strike. So I wanted to get this from one of the consistent voices that had been talking about the strike and covering it. So he is a Rutgers teacher. He's a teacher looking in from the outside. He's an adjunct at the faculty union. So no, he's not at Rutgers. He's at Temple. It seems that one of the most important wins is TUGSA defeated a brutal anti-union campaign. Early on in the strike, Temple's administrators stripped grad workers of healthcare and tuition remission. We covered that. They returned healthcare to the workers before the strike even ended, a sign that the bosses saw they were losing. They also saw that they were monsters and it was just inhumane to do. Now tuition remission has been returned as well. That's good. If Temple had won using these kinds of measures, it would have had a devastating effect on union struggle, especially in higher education across the country, like in the looming Rutgers strike. That's why I said Rutgers, because he mentioned a Rutgers strike. He said there's also another big win. TUGSA destroyed the system of tiered wages for its members. That system of tiers left some making significantly less than others in the bargaining unit, and that's no small feat. Dividing members of a union against themselves is the order of the day when it comes to union busting. So getting rid of tiers is a key demand other unions are fighting for too, but one that many haven't been able to win. So achieving that really is important. Right, so grad workers also won more bereavement and parental leave, as well as important raise in pay. Not what they wanted, but in the first year of the new contract, they'll make 23% more. They were only making 18 grand or 19.5. Remember, we were talking about 27,000, and it's going to get by 2026, they'll get up to about 30%, which is 19 to 27,000. That's still not even close to where they need to be. The deal isn't perfect, to be sure. For example, thanks. Nobody's making money here. I mean, I don't think that although Temple is a massive endowment, they also have massive expenses. It's not like they're running a profitable, a for-profit business there. For example, the wage bump takes grad worker pay closer to a living wage in Philly, but won't take it all the way there. From the outside, it seems that more could have been won. Key reason is that my own faculty union didn't throw its full weight into the struggle, and I'll come back to that in a minute. That's Jason's opinion, and here are some of the lessons that we learned. We should talk about how one of the most important things about this strike, which is how they won and what it won, a militancy, creativity, and cunning that could inspire others in the U.S. labor struggle, especially at colleges and universities. Getting the press out they made no end of trouble for the university's bosses. That's right. They built big, loud, disruptive pickets. Crucially, over the course of struggle, TUGSA's rank and file intensified those pickets, from normal ones, which are marching, chanting, singing, but allowing people to and fro, to hard ones, where grad workers set up a series of pickets to block trucks and stop scab drivers from entering buildings. They linked arms, letting students and others in and out of the building, but blocking the UPS supervisors. And it worked. This is what the paragraph to me that was everything. Solidarity was key. In February, Tugsa linked up with undergrads, like the Union for Undergrads, TUWOC, which is funny.
These names are crazy.
Sounding.
Tugsa, TUWOC. What is this? A Star Wars?
This is what happened here, right? But this is what happens with all these acronyms. You know, but TUWOC staged a 2,000-strong walkout that ended by surrounding the president's office. Oof. You know, when the university hired wildly unqualified teachers as scabs, the grad workers helped spark a class action lawsuit by parents against the university. Tugsa helped push leaders of his own union for faculty, librarians, and others to ramp up its anti-scabbing message. Of course they did. Yeah, they wanted to see those guys cross the picket lines. Rank and file faculty organized across their departments and colleagues to flood the bosses with signed statements of support for Tugsa. Now remember, this is just the Grad Students Association, and grad students are a really critical part of universities, but they still are a small part. So you're talking about between the students and the full-time professors and all the school administrators, none of them are affected by any of this stuff and any of this pay. Now, the undergrads are certainly affected by not having grad students there to teach them and to teach those classes. The professors are certainly affected by not having the grad students there to teach those classes and to help audit and to grade and to control, to do whatever the hell they do for those classes. I mean, they are really critical, and they're highly underpaid, and everybody knows it. It's just one of the things that they do to cut their teeth, to pay their dues while they're learning, while they're going to school. It's almost like a residency for doctors in a way. But momentum was building throughout the semester. It crested in March when the hard picket started and when his union started organizing for a no-confidence vote in Temple's President Wingard. So Exhibit A was the sadistic way that he responded to the strike. And by itself was a no-confidence vote. Can't dethrone the leader of a university, but it can start the process. It started conversations. It became clear that President Wingard was rattled. So once proceedings toward a vote started, he sent an alarmed email to the university and gave the vote free publicity to say that the harsh austerity moves are needed for the sake of the university. This is not the kind of message you send to win over students or grad workers or faculty. Nope. It was a message to his bosses, the board of trustees, kind of public pleading for his job. It's no coincidence that this deal was struck amid the whirring of the machinery of the no confidence vote. So, getting the discussions of the potential of a no confidence vote got a fire lit under him, and he's like, wait a minute. Let me first make sure that I'm appealing to my bosses so that that's not necessarily going to happen, at least from the top, maybe from underneath, but at least I'll have support from above.
President my boss. So Jason does concede that they could have one more with more solidarity, and this is where he's talking about his own union. That it's clear, in other words, Tugsa won what it did because of the solidarity and militancy that it built up. But I think it could have won more. Like if my union, TAUP, threw its full bulk into the fight, and to be sure, there were key ways that they stood behind it, like delivering food and beginning to organize a vote of no confidence in the president, right? We shouldn't sneeze at any of this. All of it mattered. But right when the strike first started, his union leader's messaging was almost ambivalent, because I don't think that anybody, and Jason understands this. An early email said that many of us would not need to scab, though still maybe some might. Not exactly a full-throated rejection of scabbing. It was only on February 8th, weeks into the struggle, that this line was hardened in an all-union email to, quote,
the subject line, "Say no to scamming." And that's what it should have been from the first minute. We all know this. I mean, they're a union. I'm really saddened to hear that they would endorse crossing a picket line against another union within the school, because what's going to happen when they decide that they want to go out on strike? Are they going to get the kind of solidarity that they want? More importantly, there were just too few of us on the pickets next to Tugsah. Some of us were there for sure, though not many. Especially early on, our leadership told us time and again that joining the pickets would violate our no-strike clause in our contract. Well, not if you're still doing your own classes. For background, it's normally not forbidden to walk on another union's pickets. That's a First Amendment right. And yet our leadership had agreed to a no-strike clause in our contract, which is so wildly prohibitive that it expressly forbids even constitutional activity like walking on a picket.
Right.
Grad workers told me again and again, a mortal fear of that clause has been drummed into my union's rank and file. Right. First of all, a no-strike clause should never have been accepted.
Straight up telling them, don't help them, essentially.
Well, what they're saying is that if you help them, you are technically violating our union's agreement with the university to not do that unless we have beef. But they're going to have beef with other unions, and they're effectively finding a way to abolish or banish solidarity strikes. The power of workers like us comes from the fact that we do everything that a business needs to run. Teaching and grading, sweeping and cooking, coding and pouring coffee. We're the ones who make the bosses rich. We flex our muscles by refusing to work, and giving up the right to strike means we agree to fight with our hands tied behind our backs. No wonder our bosses love the no-strike clause. And certainly any clause like this prohibiting constitutional activity like walking on another person's pickets should have been laughed out of the room at any bargaining session. Why wasn't it? Besides, there was absolutely no way for the university to tell us if any of us were on the pickets. They were so busy scrambling for scabs the entire strike, they had no time or personnel to even check up on us. Yes, but they will, Jason. The boss's threat here was totally empty, and that became clear from day one of the strike. It would have been child's play for our leaders to organize contingents of teachers, quote, under the table to the pickets, and they refused. But there's a deeper reason for such timidity at play here. For years, my union's leadership left us unprepared to fight the way we need to. So when a strike was knocking on our door asking for help, we didn't know what to do. Strike is almost a dirty word for our union leaders in any meeting I'm at, even though our contract, with its no-strike clause, ends in October. 3 years ago at our last contract, leadership told us that TAUP isn't ready to strike. It'll take time and careful preparation. But that was 3 years ago.
Of course it will.
And in that whole time, they never started preparing. Now we're facing down our next negotiations this year. And now we've been left unprepared to fight the way we'll need to fight for a better contract again, let alone walk the pickets in support of the strikes. The Temple bosses were vicious to Tugsah, and Tugsah only won through a strike they'd been preparing for years. Their strike is how they won what they did. Is there any chance we could win a deal anywhere close to Tugsah's without a pitched fight? Good question. But all this points to the problems with top-down business unionism. Okay. That's been the norm. That's what's been the norm in the U.S. labor movement, not just in my union, for far too long. It's a model that says unions don't need to fight and strike to win. They just need to trust the wiles of union leaders and their political allies, the Democrats, who will do the fighting for us. Sure they will. Unions make a harder pivot to that approach than ever before, starting in 1980. The last 40 years show that this is a strategy for losing. So it served as the midwife to perhaps the most catastrophic decline in the U.S. labor movement in its history. But imagine a different situation.
Imagine my union had been preparing for our own strike for the last 3 years, building up a network of strike captains in every department, and creating escalating rallies to ready ourselves to screw up our courage. So when our contract runs out on this October, now jump forward to the Tugsah strike this past January, all of a sudden there's a strike on our doorstep and it starts knocking. Now we'd have a union that had been training itself and not been afraid but to fight, practicing basic skills like rallying and creating a communication network to mobilize ourselves in big numbers. We should learn from this. In that world, it'd probably be pretty hard to stop a lot of us from being on that picket line. We already know Tugsah built up its numbers through years of strike prep. Right? Imagine how much TAUP's numbers would have increased. Our membership, in fact, did jump during the Tugsah strike. Right? With those bigger numbers and with more prep, who knows what else we could have done too, like a sick out. When I was in the IWW, we used to say there's no such thing as an illegal strike, just a strike that has the power to win or one that doesn't.
Yep.
All right. Imagine in that alternate universe how much stronger the Tugsah strike would have been and how much more Tugsah would have won. And it's not just about Tugsah. Any union winning at Temple, winning big at Temple is good for every union at Temple. And that's what we were saying. And across Philly and for unions across the United States in general. I mean, look at what the LA teachers, they got a 33% increase, but it was like below living wage, $32,500 for a starting teacher, I believe. But from $25,000, it's going to take years to get there. Big wins raise the floor across the board, and they spread inspiration like sparks. Agreed. The Tugsah strike offers a key lesson. In other words, militant pickets and active solidarity mean victory, and the more the better. It's a lesson that my own union and every union should pay attention to. All right, and then he's got a whole other section. I just wanted to shout out the Talking Wombat over on the Rockfin said they needed the French garbage haulers to back them up. Then they get all the demands. And we're going to talk about the French garbage haulers later, backing up all the garbage onto the members of parliament. I love those guys. It's amazing. They were kind of dicks to me when I was there, French people, but man, what they're doing is amazing. And we're going to recognize what they're up to and talk about some of that in a little bit. Ripple effects. So what's happening and what's going to be a result from this strike is we will see you all at the Rutgers picket lines. Okay, that's how Tugsah ended its daily strike debrief. Right, Rutgers faculty down the road, just from us in Philly, is preparing for its own strike. All right, at the University of Pennsylvania, undergrads are unionizing, so are medical residents at Penn, but not just Philly. UTLA, like I just said, the primary ed teacher union in LA, looks like it might go on strike in the near future, and actually did for 3 days, and they did win some pretty substantive concessions. Now, people were complaining that it wasn't enough, and it will never be enough, but they're getting 35% raises, and that's not nothing. It's several percent over each year, and these are state budgets that are dictated federal. I mean, look, the MMT people say, look, we can make as much money as we want and give him everything that we want to give him, but that's not what all the people who actually make the laws say. So until they get in there and do that, this is what we have to deal with the budgets. So, but Tugsah's strike, again, goes way beyond it. It offers lessons not just beyond his own union. It could also spur a lesson for education unions or any other kind. So I will see you on the picket lines, or Jason will too, because he was definitely out there. And shout out to Jason. Shout out to Left Voice, Indie Media Award honoree. Slowpoke. I know you're petting an animal, so I got you.
No, I'm not.